Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining me today. I'm going to show you how to install and configure the Cisco Configuration Professional CCP. I'm going to use version 2.8 and then we're going to connect into some routers using HTTP and HTTPS. For those who don't know what CCP is, so I've got an example here in one of my virtual machines. So CCP is basically a GUI front for configuring Cisco ISR routers. So once you connect it to the device, you can do, interface configurations, look at what the interfaces are, edit the configurations, bring them up, configure IP addresses. You can do router configurations like time, NTP, DHCP. So all the configurations you can do from a normal Cisco IOS, you can do from here. So it's a very useful tool, and it's really excellent. But needs to be set up a little bit, so we're going to go through that today. So important notes here are that you, first of all, before you install the Cisco Configuration Professional, you must install Java, and it requires a slightly older version of Java. So the latest is 8 at the moment, but it requires version 6 and above. And then we also need to have Adobe Flash Player. Some of the other things, we need to make sure we turn off the Windows Firewall, turn off a pop-up blocker, and then we need to change some settings on the Java as well. So we'll go through that step by step. So I'll just quickly show you what my lab looks like. So I've got a GNS3 lab and I've got a test router here which we're going to configure up, and we're going to configure, I've got a virtual box with Windows 7 running on there, so we're going to install the CCP on that virtual box here. And then what we'll do is we'll use CCP to get onto this router, and then configure NTP to connect to this device here. So before we make a start, just quickly show you the release notes. So if you have a look at the release notes for the Cisco Configuration Professional 2.8, you need to make sure you've got the correct PC requirements. So these are the requirements. You need to make sure you've got the 2 GHz processor, minimum 1 gig RAM, but 2 gig recommended, and then hard drive. It's supported on all of these Windows operating systems and Mac OS and Linux as well. So you need a minimum browser of Internet Explorer 6, and then these are the JRE versions, so the Java Runtime Environment, and Adobe Flash Player requirement as well. So we need to make sure that we have all of those installed correctly. Word of note here as well is that the 2.8 version supports all of these devices, so please check that the router that you're trying to configure is supported here. For unsupported devices, like because I'm using GNS3, the HTTPS doesn't work because this is a GNS3 version. But I'll give you an example where we'll fire up an 887 router as well. Okay, so if we go to my virtual box and my Windows 7, so I've downloaded Java already, but I'll just quickly show you where to get that from. So if you go to Google and do Java 6 download, you'll find this Java archive downloads. So just go onto that, and then just wait for that to load up. So there you go. So you've got all the different versions available, so you can download anything above the 6.10 version. So I've already downloaded it. You probably, I've got the 6.32, but what you need to do is, if you select, sorry, that's the wrong one. If you select one of the JREs, so this one, we'll try that one, you have to accept the license and then select which operating system you want it for. So mine's the Windows. And what you have to do is you have to create a username and ID, so you need to log on and create a username account. It's all free of charge, there's no charge at all, so it's pretty good, and you can download that version. Next thing is you need the Flash Player as well. So this is the Adobe website for the Flash Player. Untick these if you don't want to install the Google bar and the tool bar, so make sure you untick that, otherwise it will install that for you as well. And then just click install. So Flash Player and the Java. So the Java is straightforward, just double click and install it and it's done, right? I've already installed it, so if we go to control panel and look at programs, there's the Java. So we need to make some setting changes on the Java, so just click on the Java and let's put that away. So it should bring up pop up a new window. There we go. So go back to my requirements. So if you look, we need to start setting up the some of the Java. You need to make sure that you configure this parameter into the Java runtime parameters. So if we click on that, so you click on Java here and then click on view, and you can see those parameters, and this runtime parameters here is the one that needs to change. So what you need to do is double click that, otherwise you won't be able to enter it. You double click it and then copy that exactly as it is shown here in the without the exclamation marks or the speech marks or the parentheses, whatever you want to call it. But make sure you copy that exactly verbatim like that. Okay. Once you've got that in, you say OK, click apply and say OK. One more little change you need to make. The reason why I didn't do it at the same time was, oh sorry, need to bring up my control panel, programs and Java, is let's just wait for that pop-up to come back up. Sometimes when you make these changes, it doesn't accept this command on here, so you need to say OK, OK, close it, apply, and then close again. So it's a bit fiddly, but it does work. So next change you got to make, you go to advanced, go to the plugin, and make sure that is unchecked. Normally it comes default as checked, but you've got to make sure that's unchecked, and then you click apply and say OK. So that's all the Java changes made. We need to make sure we turn the Windows firewall off and the pop-up blocker as well. So I've already done that. If you just quickly show you, control panel, go to security, and then Windows firewall, and as soon as that comes up, here we go. So all my firewalls are switched off, but it's on a virtual machine, so it's not dangerous, or you're not going to get infected with viruses, so it's fine. The other little change that you need to make is to go into your tools and pop-up blocker. Make sure you turn that pop-up blocker off. So mine's off already. And then once you've got all that set up, just close everything up and ready to install the CCP. So if we just find my program, go into that. There's my Cisco config software that I downloaded from Cisco. So double click that, and install. So that's going to install away. We'll just give that a few minutes to install. I'll just pause the video while that's going on. So that's installing, and because it's Windows 7, it's asking for permissions, so make sure you allow that. Say yes for the permissions. And then there you go, so the wizard's kicking off and it's installing. So just click next on that, accept the license and click next. The folder that you want it installed on, keep that as default, click next and install. And so I'm going to pause the video again because that takes a couple of minutes as well. Okay, so that's completed the installation, and it asks you whether you want to create a shortcut on the desktop, and you just click next. And then it's checked the Java, so you make sure that you've got the correct Java, Flash Player. If you haven't got these correct, then your CCP program will not run. So you must make sure that you install your Java plugins, and make sure you do all the settings and the Adobe Flash Player. Click next, and then you can finish there. So that's ready to go. So we're just going to, before we open that up, we're going to configure some routers as well, and get that ready for the CCP. So if we look at my lab here, we've got, I'll just bring up the routers. Okay, so got the routers here. We'll just quickly configure the router 2. Oops. That's fast Ethernet 0/0, IP address 192.168.0.1. No shot. So this is gonna be my NTP server. So I'm just gonna do NTP master. We'll do a 10. So we'll just do a basic one. So it's just gonna act as an NTP server. Okay, so that one's ready. So we'll just set up router 1 now. So my router one's going to be .10. Okay, just make sure we can ping that's the NTP server. I've got a default gateway of .1. Make sure I can ping that. I just make sure I can ping my virtual box. Just check the IP address of that. So it's .47. So make sure I can ping the .47. Yep, so that's successful. So we now put in the configuration required to enable HTTP and HTTPS on the router, the Cisco router, and then we enable SSH and Telnet login as well. So we'll do that next. So conft and the commands are IP HTTP server, IP HTTP secure server. And this will generate a 1024-bit RSA key for you, and it automatically enables SSH 2.0 as well for you. So next we need to create a username as well. So username admin. We'll make sure the privilege is 15. Password Cisco. If you don't set the privilege to 15, then your Cisco Configuration Professional CCP will not be able to log into the device, and so it will fail authentication. One more thing we need to do is IP HTTP authentication local. So it looks at your local database and looks for this local username. Last thing we need to do is line VTY 0/4 login local and transport input telnet and SSH. That's the config done on the router. So we're now ready to fire up our CCP program. So I'll bring that back up. Important, if you're running Windows XP, you don't have to do this, which is run as administrator, because it defaults as an administrator. But if you're running Windows 7 or Vista or anything else, Windows 8 or 10, make sure when you do a right click here and you run that as administrator, and then you allow that, and then it starts booting up the Cisco Professional. So that takes a couple of minutes if you're doing it first time. So that's not too bad. It's working pretty quick. So that's booted up. There we go. And you'll get an active X control. So make sure you allow the block content and say yes to that. So that's loading up, loading the engine. As I said, it does take a couple of minutes. I'm just going to pause the video there for a second. So that's been a couple of minutes. What I've found is that sometimes when you install a fresh copy, you have to reboot your PC as well. So I'm just gonna reboot this as well. So I'm going to pause the video there and reboot the PC. Okay, so that's rebooted. So we'll just do that again. So run as administrator. Say yes, and off it goes. There we go. This time it's coming up. Allow block content. Yes. Launching the engine. There we go. So yeah, I think it's probably best to give that a reboot. It is a bit temperamental because we're making Java and Flash changes and all sorts, so it's best to do that. So there we go. So the Java's all kicked in, and it asks you to log in if you've got a CCO account. You can just cancel to that if you want. Oops, cancel that. So okay, so it comes up with this box. So here you need to add the IP address. So we're going to go with my test router here, which is .10. So go back to my so it's 192.168.0.10, and the username we set up was admin, and the password is Cisco. As I said, tried doing this using Connect Securely, but what it's found is on the GNS3, because we're using a 7200 router, it doesn't actually like it. And I've tried and tried, but it doesn't like HTTPS. So it works fine as HTTP, but I'll give you an example of how to do it as HTTPS as well in a minute, because I have an 8887 router as well. So we click on that. So if it says, basically adds it into this community. And then from here you click on discover, and there you go, it's discovering. So it's now logging onto the router, and it's using the password admin and the password Cisco that we've set up on the privilege 15. So make sure it's privilege 15, and there you go, it's discovered it. So we're pretty much ready to go, and you can click on configure, and you can now look at all the interfaces on that router. Just takes a few seconds to load because I'm using VMware VirtualBox. Okay, there we are. So you just click on the connections, and you can see all the interfaces here. You click on router, you can see all the different options for configuring stuff like time, NTP. So if you want to configure NTP, just click on add. So give it a server address. So we've got 192.168.0.100. Just click on prefer. The source we're going to use is fast Ethernet 0. There's no keys, no authentication. Just click on OK, and it gives you the configurations, the iOS configurations that's going to be applied, and you can click on save to running config if you want as well, or you don't have to. But if you're ready to apply that config, you just say deliver, and it says right, it's preparing to deliver these commands, and you say OK, and poof, it's done it. So if I just have a look at the router, so show NTP status. NTP is not, it's just still configuring it. Just hold on 1 second. There we go. So we've got that in there. Okay, so if we just have a look at the router and then just show NTP associations. So that's the config that's applied. Show run begin NTP, and those are the two commands that it's placed on the device. So there you go. So that's CCP working. What I found was one important thing was the HTTPS. If you click on HTTPS and click OK and try and do a secure connection, it doesn't work on the GNS3. It tries, but it doesn't work at all. And I've tried all sorts of things, but because it's a 7200, and if you look at the release notes, it does not support it on this. So I've got an 887, so I'm just going to boot that up, and I'll show you the HTTPS process as well. So I'm just going to boot that up here. Just pause that for a second, and I'll boot up the 887. Right, so this is my 887 router. So we'll just do the same thing again. So I'm connected via VLAN 1 IP address at the moment. Okay, so we'll go conft IP HTTP server, IP HTTP secure server. Okay, username admin, privilege 15, password Cisco. Okay, and then line VTY 0/4 login local. I think I've forgotten the HTTP login local as well, so I'll do that. And then transport input telnet SSH and IP HTTP authentication local. Okay, so that's ready. So the 887 is ready. So if we bring up our device here, so we're going to put in a new router 192.168.0.254, password admin Cisco, and this time we're going to connect securely. That one doesn't work because that's the GNS3 one, but this one should work, which now goes to the 887. So just click on OK, and there we go. So it's got not discovered, so we do a discovery, and then we just discovery scheduled, and it takes a couple of minutes. There you go, it's discovered. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. I would need to discover this one. There you go, so discovery scheduled. Now, with this one, because you're doing a secure connection, it pops up with a security alert. A handy trick here is that when you sometimes you go into web pages where they're not secure and you accept the security certificate. This is the same sort of thing, where the security alert pops up and then you have to agree or disagree. But as long as you say yes to that, the certificate is ignored and you're allowed to proceed to the website. It does take a couple of minutes and you just need to be patient. There we go, it's accepted it. Sometimes if you get problems with that discovery, what you can do is just start off an Internet Explorer web page and then do a HTTPS onto the router. But there you go, so it's discovered that already, and this time it's the secure method compared to the other one on the GNS3, which is a non-secure. But the secure one does take a few minutes to come up, but it will come up. And it's recognized that it's an 887 router, and it's still discovering. It does take a couple of minutes, but I think we'll be nearly there. If that actually fails, it will throw you a fail, and then you can click on the discovery details to find out why it's failed. And then there's a help button as well here, which shows you what to do when it doesn't work. So this one's worked perfectly, so there you go. So we've got a secure connection using HTTPS. I hope you found that useful. What I will do is I'll put all these instructions underneath on the video, and you can follow them. But as I said, the main thing is to remember is to go to the release notes. The release notes actually tells you all the requirements and the Java requirements, what devices are supported, everything. So hope you found that useful. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks.